how do you get to a place where you're able to resensitize yourself and maybe even overcome some of these behavior patterns that really aren't serving you or anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, getting to the place is taking responsibility that you've gotten yourself in the place. I think conversations like this are important. I think accepting the fact that pornography is a real thing, and that's where it's got to start first. It's like, okay, let's not just pretend that it's a behavior that every man does and every man is supposed to do, and it's just part of how we express our sexuality. That's no longer the case. Like, we need to be open and honest about this. So looking at the conversation for what it really is, number one, accepting that just like any addiction, what does 12 steps tell you to do? They say, surrender yourself, admit that the addiction has power and control over you. Now, I don't fully subscribe to that belief and philosophy. I think that there's some limits in that way of thinking, but in the beginning, you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be radically honest. This was me, right? Like, this was 2019. I was struggling to build my second business. I wanted to be Urson, right? I wanted to have a fitness company where I was helping people online. This is Masthetic Muscle. Like, it's still out there. Go to frankchrisfitness.com. Still a small little thing, very, very small part of what I'm doing today. But it's small because I wasn't breaking through, because I wasn't frank. When I turned on Instagram and when I turned on creating content, I had to put a layer over myself to say, okay, who I really am is a guy that's addicted to pornography, but I'm going to pretend that I have everything together. So there was a disconnect. So I had to get real honest and very radically honest with myself first. So I think if somebody is trying to break out of this, accept that it's a problem, step one, and then take radical responsibility that you're the only person that's going to change it for you.
I love that, dude. I feel like that's something that I had experienced as well when I finally realized, like, okay, this is something that is gotten out of hand, and
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like my body is, I've conditioned it, and it is me. I've conditioned it to behave this way
Yeah.
because every action is habit forming. So I had to find a way to replace and kind of rewire my brain, if you will. So, I mean, that's really fascinating. And it's why I'm so passionate about this topic. I remember when I met you in person, you had what I like to call the stare. You had the stare. You could look into someone and I can feel your presence. And I think that's something you achieve when you stop doing these things and you develop a level of
Mm.
internal self-confidence.